Welcome everyone to the deep dive. This is your place to get genuinely well-informed, without feeling like you're just drowning in information overload. You know that feeling, don't you? That familiar little pang when you're scrolling through your bank statement, maybe your eyes are glazing over a bit, and then bam, you spot one of those small recurring charges, and your brain just goes, wait, what is that for again? It's like this universal moment of, uh-oh, right? A tiny financial sting that, let's be honest, far too many of us experience, probably far too often. But what if all those tiny stings, what if they're actually adding up to a much bigger problem?
It's exactly that uh-oh moment. It's actually the perfect place for us to start our journey today. And I'm really thrilled to be diving deep with you into something that, well, it affects almost everyone's wallet and maybe more importantly, their peace of mind. So today, we're tackling subscription overload, the psychology of recurring and how to break free. We're going to explore this whole thing through the lens of behavioral finance and the psychology of money, which can be pretty fascinating, sometimes surprising. I mean, just think about it for a second. From the streaming services that maybe lull you to sleep at night to the software you absolutely need every day. Even stuff like, I don't know, your fancy razor blades or those coffee bean deliveries subscriptions have just quietly, almost sneakily become this huge part of our lives. So we're here today to kind of peel back the layers on that, to uncover the hidden psychological triggers, behind why we sign up in the first place, why we often stay subscribed even when we don't really mean to, and crucially, how you can reclaim control over your finances and, let's be real, maybe your sanity too.
And that right there, that's really our core mission for this deep dive. We want to cut through all the noise, give you a really crystal clear understanding of the powerful psychological principles that are at play here. We'll shine a bright light on the clever techniques, sometimes they feel almost invisible, that businesses use to keep us kind of hooked. And then, most importantly, we're going to arm you with practical, actionable strategies, things you can actually start using today to manage your digital subscriptions. Yeah. And maybe even, your whole financial life a bit better. Our goal is for you to walk away from this deep dive feeling not just informed, but genuinely empowered, confident, in control of your choices. So get ready for some, I think, truly surprising facts and hopefully some of those great aha moments that make this kind of conversation stick with you.
Okay, so let's really try and unpack this. It genuinely feels like almost every single aspect of modern life now has like a monthly fee attached, or at least some kind of recurring charge. We live in this world where convenience is supposedly king, right?
But it feels like that crown comes with a pretty hefty subscription bill. But how deep does this rabbit hole actually go? What's the true scale of this? And what's it really costing us, beyond just the obvious dollars and cents? Just think about the sheer variety of subscription models that have absolutely exploded, especially in the last, say, decade. It's not just the classic stuff anymore, like your Netflix, your Spotify, maybe HBO Max, whatever. Those are still huge, obviously. But the landscape has gotten so much broader. We're talking about essential software like Microsoft 365, which, let's face it, almost everyone needs for work or school, or maybe Adobe Creative Cloud if you're a designer or a creator. Then you've got the lifestyle things, meal kit deliveries like Blue Apron or HelloFresh promising to make dinner easier. And what about those fashion boxes? Stitch Fix sending you outfits. Or Dollar Shave Club making sure you've always got razors. It just goes on and on. It doesn't stop there, does it? I've got fitness apps, connected gym equipment, car services, VPNs for privacy online, cloud storage, all those different music apps, gym memberships promising a new you, and now even AI subscriptions like GPT-4, which kind of popped up really quickly. I even saw someone on Reddit joking, but maybe only half joking, about the recurring cost of printer ink, a subscription for ink. It just shows how everywhere this model is now.
It's pretty remarkable when you lay it all out like that, isn't it? And what's truly fascinating, looking at it from a psychological angle, is this paradox. While all these services are designed to promise convenience, personalization, maybe that continuous access that honestly a lot of people do prefer over owning things now, their sheer volume, just the relentless number of options hitting us, is leading to this very real psychological phenomena. We call it subscription fatigue. And it's not just some catchy phrase. It's a genuine challenge people are facing. Consumers are feeling genuinely overwhelmed by managing all these recurring payments. And this isn't just a small irritation. It actually starts to negatively impact their financial well-being. And this is key, their ability to make rational, informed decisions. And when we try to, quantify this impact, the numbers really do start to paint a stark picture. Some studies have shown that on average, Americans are overspending by around $600 a year. Just on subscriptions they've either totally forgotten about or are barely using. Now, $600, that's not pocket change for most people. That's real money that could be going towards savings or paying down debt or even just something genuinely fun. But it's not just the financial hit, is it? There's a pretty profound emotional cost, too. I saw a recent survey, I think it was Civic Science, that found something like 62% of people using streaming services report feeling overwhelmed by just the number of options available. And maybe even more telling, up to 70% of consumers admit they subscribe to services they just forget about or use really rarely. That statistic alone, it suggests this feeling of being swamped, rather than feeling like you're getting genuine value or satisfaction. All this constant mental juggling, choosing, managing, canceling, evaluating it really does manifest as increased anxiety, sometimes guilt, exhaustion, definitely decision paralysis. Companies are basically locked in these attention wars, right? Fiercely competing for your eyeballs, your clicks, your engagement. And it just leaves us feeling mentally drained.
Wow. So if I'm hearing you right, it's not just our bank accounts feeling the pinch. It's actually our mental bandwidth, too. And I can totally see how our daily digital habits make us vulnerable to this. I mean, you mentioned the stats, the average person checking their phone, 63 times a day? Spending hours glued to it, that constant digital engagement, that always-on feeling, it naturally ties into using these subscriptions, right? It makes us more likely to sign up and probably less likely to stop and think critically about them.
You've absolutely hit on a crucial point there. And it leads us directly into a really core concept in behavioral economics, the paradox of choice. It's an incredibly powerful idea, and it helps us understand why having more options isn't always better for us. You'd think intuitively that having tons of choices, more streaming services, more meal kits, more fitness apps would make us happier, right? More satisfied, help us find exactly what we want. But what if I told you that having too many choices can actually paralyze us, or even make us less satisfied with the choice we eventually make, maybe even lead to regret? There's a classic study that illustrates this perfectly. It involved jam, of all things. Researchers set up this tasting booth in a fancy food store. In one condition, they offered shoppers 24 different varieties of gourmet jam, a huge selection. In the other condition, they drastically cut it down to just 6 varieties. The results were frankly astounding. When people were faced with 24 jams, only 3% of them actually bought a jar, just 3%. But when the choice was limited to only 6 varieties, suddenly 30% of the customers made a purchase, 10 times more. It just vividly shows how excessive choice, instead of feeling liberating, can become incredibly demotivating. It can lead to less action altogether, or it can lead to that nagging feeling of dissatisfaction after you've chosen, because you're always wondering, did I pick the absolute best one out of all those options? It just adds to that mental burden we were talking about.
That jam study is such a perfect kind of everyday analogy, isn't it? It really captures how this overload isn't just annoying, it's genuinely messing with our thinking and our well-being. Okay, so we know it's costing us financially, mentally. But that leads to the big question, doesn't it? Why? Why are we as consumers so apparently vulnerable to this ever-growing subscription model? What are the specific psychological buttons that businesses are pushing, often quite expertly, to keep us, well, hooked?
Yes. Now we get into the really interesting stuff, the invisible strings, as you call them. And it often starts with something incredibly subtle, almost unnoticeable at first. Let me ask you this. Have you ever signed up for a free trial? Thinking, oh, yeah, I'll definitely cancel this before they charge me. But then, surprise, weeks or months later, that charge just magically appears in your statement and you're genuinely taken aback. That right there, that's the pain of paying being cleverly pushed into the future. It's a core concept in behavioral finance, and honestly, almost every subscription service uses it. This theory, it was first really articulated by Offer Zellermeyer back in '96. And it's rooted in something really fundamental about us humans, our tendency towards loss aversion. What that basically means is we feel the sting of losing something like money much more intensely than we feel the pleasure of gaining the exact same amount. Our brains hate losses. And there's actually a neurological basis for this. Neuroeconomics research, people like Drazen and Prelek at MIT, they've shown that paying with cash, it actually triggers activity in the insula. That's a part of the brain associated with negative feelings, like pain or discomfort. Physical cash hurts more. But here's the really clever bit. When you just type in your credit card details for a free trial, there's significantly less activity in that insular region. The perceived pain of spending money doesn't really hit you, or it's at least significantly dulled, until much later when that unexpected charge actually shows up. And businesses, well, they exploit this brilliantly, simply by requiring your credit card info right at the start for the free trial. The pain is deferred. It's kicked down the road. So you might suddenly get hit with, a massive $750 charge for LinkedIn Premium after a trial you totally forgot about. Or maybe just a smaller, but still annoying monthly fee for some app you used, like once. It's incredibly effective because it really preys on our natural forgetfulness and our tendency to avoid immediate discomfort, that immediate pain of paying. And the statistics, well, they really back this up. That McKinsey study you mentioned earlier from 2019, It found that a staggering 91% of consumers who sign up for a free trial forget to cancel before they get charged. Just think about that. 9 out of 10 people. That single statistic just highlights how incredibly powerful, and let's be honest, how profitable this tactic is for companies. It's a classic case of using human psychology to nudge behavior.
Wow, 91%. That's nearly everyone. It's almost like they're banking on our good intentions, but, our poor follow-through. It's quite a psychological maneuver. And speaking of maneuvers, I've definitely noticed something else. When you land on a subscription services pricing page, and they always seem to show you, multiple price tiers, and there's nearly always one option that's maybe highlighted or labeled recommended or best value. My gut always tells me there's something clever going on there. What's actually happening in our brains when we see that kind of layout?
Oh, you should absolutely trust that gut feeling. What you're describing there is a classic and very potent example of something called anchoring bias. Our brains are kind of funny when it comes to evaluating options. We tend to rely really heavily on the very first piece of information we get. And that first piece of info then becomes an anchor, right? It sets the baseline for all the judgments that follow, even if that initial anchor is completely arbitrary or irrelevant. Think about it like this. Imagine a real estate agent shows you a ridiculously overpriced, rundown house first. Every other house they show you afterwards, even if it's still a bit pricey, is going to look like an amazing bargain in comparison. That first terrible house anchored your perception of value. Subscription businesses use anchoring in a very similar, very strategic way. They present a range of options, but they carefully arrange the information to steer you, often completely unconsciously, towards the outcome they prefer. So take that gourmet coffee subscription example like Beanbox. They might show a premium $24 a month option prominently. Then right next to it, maybe highlighted, is the best value offer. Say, prepay for 6 months at only $19 a month. That more expensive 24-month option. That's the anchor. Your brain immediately registers that as the sort of true price or the baseline. And suddenly, that 19-month plan, which might still be more than you initially wanted to spend on coffee beans, seems like an absolute steal. You feel smart, like you're getting a great deal because you're saving $5 a month compared to the anchor. What's really wild and kind of frustrating when you realize it is that studies show our brains keep showing a preference for that original anchor information. Even after we've been explicitly told it's wrong or irrelevant, it just shows how incredibly difficult it is to consciously shake off these biases. They're really deeply wired cognitive shortcuts.
So my brain is basically being nudged, maybe even tricked, into thinking I'm getting a deal, even if the price is still higher than I'd normally pay, or maybe higher than I truly want to pay. Yeah, that's really sneaky. And it makes me think about something else I do, something I'm often guilty of. I'll sign up for a gym membership, absolutely convinced this time I'm going 5 times a week. Or I'll sign up for a new credit card, totally certain I'll hit that spending bonus easily and pay it off right away, no problem. But then, life happens. My follow-through isn't quite as heroic as I imagined. Why do I, and probably lots of people, consistently overestimate our own discipline or good luck when it comes to these kinds of financial commitments?
That's another fantastic question, and it points right at a different but equally powerful bias, optimism bias. What's really fascinating here is that we humans, we tend to be eternal optimists, especially when it comes to judging our own future behavior or the likelihood of negative things happening to us personally. Our brains have this almost protective mechanism, this tendency to deliberately ignore information we don't want to see or to downplay potential risks. This definitely includes things like actually reading those super long terms and conditions or really dwelling on the fine print. We just inherently assume things will work out for the best for us. There's a cognitive neuroscience professor, Tali Sharot, who's done some brilliant research on exactly this. Her studies consistently show that participants significantly overestimate the likelihood of positive things happening to them personally. Like getting a gift or a promotion, getting that raise. They overestimate the good stuff even when the actual objective odds are exactly the same as for neutral or even negative events happening. We're just wired to think, oh, that bad stuff, it won't happen to me. And businesses, naturally, are very skilled at tapping into this optimism. Think about credit card companies dangling those flashy rewards, like American Express Platinum offering, 60,000 points if you spend $5,000 in the first 3 months. Our optimistic brain immediately jumps to, oh yeah, I can totally hit that spending target. We start mentally spending those points on a dream vacation. And we don't really dwell on the high interest rates if we don't pay it off, or the potential for late fees, or even the less glamorous but very real risk of credit card fraud. This bias is great at distracting us from those real risks. I mean, just to put it in perspective, 2019 was apparently the worst year ever recorded for data breaches, something like 15 billion records exposed. So while we're busy daydreaming about our free flights, we're often seriously underestimating the actual tangible risks involved with our financial data and our spending habits. It's a prime example of how our psychological blind spots can really cost us.
That puts a whole new light on those shiny credit card offers, doesn't it? It's like our brains are actively filtering out the warning labels. Okay, and here's where it gets really interesting for me, and honestly, a bit frustrating when I think about it. Something that always kind of baffles me is this. I will agonize over a single large purchase, say a new washing machine that costs $500. I'll do tons of research, compare prices, really feel the pain of that one big chunk of money leaving my account, but then I'll happily let, I don't know, half a dozen small subscriptions, maybe $10 here, $15 there, just run month after month for a whole year, easily adding up to $600 or more. And I barely even blink. What on earth is going on with my brain's internal accounting system that it treats money so differently?
That's a brilliant observation, and it perfectly illustrates Richard Thaler's Nobel Prize-winning concept of mental accounting. It's fascinating stuff. What Thaler discovered is that we don't actually treat all money as truly fungible, meaning, interchangeable. Logically, a dollar is a dollar, right? But instead, our brains have this quirky tendency to compartmentalize money. We mentally categorize it. We treat it differently based on where it came from or what we intend to use it for, or even just how it's presented to us. We don't see it as just one big pool of funds. We put mental labels on it. So like imagine you find $100 on the sidewalk, a total windfall. You might easily blow it on something fun, a treat, something impulsive without much thought or guilt. You've mentally labeled it found money, so the usual pain of paying for something enjoyable is way lower. But if that exact same $100 comes from your regular paycheck, which you've mentally labeled as hard-earned income, meant for bills and groceries and necessities, you likely treat it totally differently, much more carefully. You'd budget it, maybe save it, spend it responsibly. It's the same with subscriptions.
Those small recurring payments, $9.99 here, $14.99 there, they often get mentally categorized in our internal ledgers as insignificant or minor expenses, maybe even just pocket change. And this creates a really powerful illusion of affordability. If you just swipe or click subscribe for these microtransactions without really stopping to consider the long-term cumulative financial hit, and then suddenly all those seemingly tiny individual payments that our mental accounting system basically ignored, they add up to a really significant, often unnoticed drain on our overall finances. It's like a classic death by a thousand cuts scenario, and it's all thanks to how our brains subtly and often irrationally categorize money.
That makes so much sense. It's like we literally have different mental pockets for different types of money, and the subscription money often ends up in the don't worry about it too much pocket. But it definitely all adds up. Okay, so once we've clicked subscribe, it really feels like these services are designed to just weave themselves into our daily lives, almost making it feel impossible to quit. Am I just, weak-willed? Or is there more going on here than just my own lack of discipline making it hard to cancel?
Oh, not at all. You're definitely not just weak-willed. You're experiencing the really powerful combined effects of the habit loop and something called status quo bias. If we connect this to the bigger picture, once you're subscribed, our natural human tendency is just to stick with the current situation, the status quo. And this inertia is often reinforced by, brilliantly designed systems, even if they sometimes feel a bit deceptive, and the formation of really deep-seated habits. Charles Duhigg, in his fantastic book, The Power of Habit, explains this neurological cycle really well. The habit loop. It's a simple but incredibly powerful sequence of cue, routine, or reward. And subscription services. They are absolute masters at skillfully embedding themselves into our daily routines, making their offerings feel not just nice to have, but almost essential. Just think about Netflix or YouTube Premium, for instance. Those autoplay features, they're absolutely not accidental. They're specifically designed to foster binging habits. You finish one episode, and boom, the next one starts almost immediately, reinforcing that nightly streaming routine, making it automatic. Or think about fitness apps like Peloton, or maybe language learning apps like Duolingo. They use daily streaks, badges, progress trackers. These things expertly create a sense of accomplishment, which is great, but also subtly a feeling of guilt if you disengage and break your streak. That negative reinforcement makes it incredibly hard to stop once the service becomes a regular, ingrained part of your behavior. And then, compounding all of this habit formation is what psychologists call status quo bias. We humans are generally, just by default, less inclined to take action to change an existing situation or default setting. We prefer inertia. Businesses know this intimately, and they leverage it heavily with automatic renewals. Auto-renew effectively makes consumers have to actively opt out rather than consciously opt in each time their subscription period ends. This puts the burden entirely on you. You have to remember to cancel. You have to navigate what are often deliberately complicated or confusing cancellation processes, rather than simply making a positive choice to continue subscribing each time. This bias is also exploited by companies that make those cancellation processes deliberately difficult or hard to find, relying on what some call the forgetting curve. They count on you just forgetting about the service or its renewal date. It's really no wonder that so many people commonly express immense frustration with these cancellation hoops and the whole auto-renewal thing.
Right.
In fact, this issue has become so widespread that even the Biden-Harris administration has publicly acknowledged it, proposing new rules aimed at making cancellation easier and more transparent for consumers. Because the system, as it often stands, is absolutely designed to make inertia doing nothing work for the companies, not for you. It's all about preserving that comfortable, profitable default.
Wow. Expert, you've really painted a clear picture here. It's so evident that the subscription economy isn't just a collection of useful services. It's more like an expertly designed psychological maze, right? Leveraging all our inherent biases and mental shortcuts to its own significant advantage. It can feel a bit overwhelming listening to all this, maybe even like we're caught in some kind of invisible spider web. But here's the really inspiring part, I think, and it's the whole reason we do this deep dive. Understanding these mechanisms, recognizing these invisible strings for what they are, that is the absolute first step towards freedom. Knowing how we get hooked gives us the power, the awareness to consciously start cutting those strings. So now that we've explored all the ingenious ways we get drawn in, the big question for everyone listening has to be, what can you actually do about it? What are the practical, actionable steps you can take to navigate this maze successfully and really take back control of your finances and, just as importantly, your peace of mind?
That's precisely the right question to ask now. And this is where we pivot, right? From understanding the problem to actively finding solutions. How do we, as consumers, shift from just passively letting these charges pile up to actively strategically managing our subscriptions? The key, I firmly believe, starts with becoming your own financial detective and implementing a system of proactive, regular reviews. You need to start by building a consistent habit. Conduct regular subscription audits. This isn't a one-and-done thing. It means consciously setting aside some dedicated time. Maybe make it quarterly, maybe even monthly if you have a lot to go through your bank and credit card statements with a fine-tooth comb. Don't just glance at them. Scrutinize every single recurring charge. Ask yourself, what is this? Do I use it? Is it worth it? I worked with one family who found amazing success by scheduling subscription check-ins every 3 months, like a family meeting almost. They'd sit down together, review every service they were paying for, and make conscious decisions about what was truly valuable and what could go. This kind of systematic approach is absolutely crucial for catching those forgotten or rarely used subscriptions that are just silently draining your account month after month. Think of it like weeding a garden. You have to do it regularly to keep things healthy and prevent the weeds from taking over. And beyond just identifying them, consider using what I like to call the pause button on some of your subscriptions, just to truly assess their value. For instance, if you get one of those fashion boxes, maybe delivering 5 clothing items every few weeks. Or perhaps a pet subscription box, sending toys and treats every month. Try pausing it for a month or two, then ask yourself honestly, did I really miss this? Is my dog genuinely suffering without the absolute latest chew toy or gourmet biscuit? The answer, more often than you might think, is probably not. Pausing lets you actually experience life without the service for a bit. It gives you a much clearer, less biased perspective on whether it's truly worth the price tag. You might find you barely even notice it's gone. And definitely don't forget to leverage technology here. It can be a fantastic ally in this fight. Budgeting apps, or those more robust financial planning websites like YNAB, you need awarding. A Budget is a popular one. They are excellent for tracking all your spending, including every single subscription payment. But there are also apps specifically designed for subscription management now. Tools like Sortbilly, I think it's called. You can track active and expired subs, upcoming payments, give you clear spending stats, or another one, Track My Subs, offers things like calendar views and cost graphs, so you can actually visualize your recurring expenses over time. These tools provide that crucial transparency you need to make genuinely informed decisions. They empower you by showing you exactly where your money is going, taking away the guesswork.
Expert, those sound like absolutely fantastic first steps for just uncovering those hidden drains in our accounts. So what does this really all mean for us, for the listener? It sounds like it means getting truly intentional with our money, right? Rather than just letting our financial life be dictated by those sneaky defaults or those impulsive clicks we talked about. So Beyond just tracking things, how do we build a really strong, resilient financial defense, both for our wallets and maybe just as importantly for our mental peace of mind?
Absolutely. Building that strong defense is key. And the cornerstone of it, the foundation that allows you to be truly intentional, is creating a realistic monthly budget. Now, I know for some people the word budget can sound really restrictive, maybe even like deprivation. But I really want you to try and reframe that thinking. A budget isn't about telling yourself what you can't do. It's actually about empowering yourself to know exactly what you can do because you know where your money is going. It puts you back in control. A budget helps you keep track of exactly how much money is coming in, how much is going out, and it lets you set clear, realistic limits for different spending categories. So, for example, you might decide to allocate a specific amount for groceries, another chunk for entertainment, and maybe a specific conscious amount just for subscriptions. Once that budget for, say, eating out is used up for the month, well, you know you're done. It helps you prioritize what's really important. This level of intentionality is what helps you clearly identify where your money's really flowing. And it lets you make conscious decisions about which subscriptions genuinely add value to your life and which ones are just noise or clutter. And then, beyond just the numbers in the budget, you can cultivate some incredibly healthy spending habits by creating your own personal financial rules. These don't have to be super strict, like draconian laws you impose on yourself. Think of them more as gentle but firm nudges to guide your own behavior in a positive direction. We all know simple rules like don't go grocery shopping when you're hungry, right? It's surprisingly effective at preventing those impulse buys of junk food. Well, another highly effective strategy, one I recommend to many people, is adopting the 24-hour rule for any non-necessity purchases. So if you're tempted to buy something online or in a store that isn't absolutely essential right now, force yourself to wait a full 24 hours before actually making the purchase. This cooling off period is remarkably effective at dampening those immediate emotional impulses that often drive spending. It allows your more rational brain to catch up. Often, by the next day, that strong urge has faded, or you've had time to realize you don't truly need it after all. These kinds of habits, yes, they take time and consistent effort to build. But over time, they will fundamentally strengthen your financial defenses and help you become a much more conscious, intentional consumer.
Those are brilliant, really practical habits to start building. It really is about taking back the reins, isn't it? Not just reacting all the time. And you mentioned technology earlier, expert, how it often kind of enables these subscriptions in the first place. But this is where technology can actually fight fire with fire, right? Offering us some really powerful tools for self-protection. So tell us more about virtual cards, because it sounds like it could offer like ultimate control.
You're absolutely right. Virtual cards are a potential game changer when it comes to control and security online. What's really fascinating here is exactly that point, how technology, which so often creates the conditions for subscription overload, can also be our greatest tool for protecting ourselves against unwanted charges and even safeguarding us from costly data breaches. I'm talking specifically about services like privacy.com is one well-known example that generate virtual card numbers. The concept is wonderfully simple, but incredibly powerful. Instead of using your real credit or debit card number everywhere online, you create unique temporary virtual card numbers for every single online purchase or subscription sign-up. This provides this incredible, almost impenetrable layer of security and, crucially for this conversation, control. These virtual cards come packed with some truly powerful features that essentially flip the script on businesses that rely on auto-renewals or hard-to-cancel policies. First, you can set a maximum spending limit for each individual virtual card you create. So this means if a subscription service tries to suddenly jack up the price or charge you more than, say, the $15 limit you set, the transactions just automatically decline. Total peace of mind right there. Second, many services let you create merchant-locked cards. These cards are specifically tied only to the very first merchant they're used at. So even if that virtual card number somehow gets stolen in a data breach somewhere else, it's useless to thieves because it can't be used for any other purchases at any other merchant. Third, and this is fantastic for tackling those free trials we talked about, you can create single-use cards. These cards automatically close themselves and become completely invalid right after the very first purchase goes through. This totally eliminates any risk of being charged when a free trial ends because the card simply won't work anymore. Problem solved. And finally, at any time, with just a click, you can instantly pause or completely close any of your virtual cards. This immediately blocks any future transaction attempts from that specific vendor. No more run around trying to cancel. This whole approach helps you avoid the fallout from data breaches, it stops unwanted auto-renewals in their tracks, and it prevents the massive headache of dealing with stolen credit card numbers. It really provides immense peace of mind and significantly boosts your financial security. It's about shifting from passive acceptance of risk to active digital self-defense.
That is genuinely ingenious, a really clever way to create firm boundaries in the often boundaryless digital world. I absolutely love the idea of using technology to fight back. Shay expert, let's unpack this just a little bit further, though, because beyond all these fantastic tools and tactics we've discussed, surely a really crucial step to reclaiming lasting control has to be an internal shift, right? Transforming your psychological approach to how you even make choices in the first place. It can't just be about external strategies and apps, can it?
Absolutely. You've hit on a profoundly important point there. The tools and tactics, they're invaluable, they really are. But true, sustainable control often comes from mastering your own mindset. And a huge part of this involves consciously trying to shift from being what we call a maximizer to becoming more of a satisficer. Let me quickly explain what I mean by that. Maximizers are those individuals who feel compelled to find the absolute best possible option in every single scenario. They weigh every conceivable alternative, they research endlessly, they live in fear of missing out on something even slightly better. Now, while this might sound incredibly rational and thorough on the surface, study after study consistently shows that maximizers actually experience more regret, more anxiety, and tend to be significantly less happy with their decisions overall. They're constantly feeling pressured and often end up feeling disappointed. Satisficers, on the other hand, they adopt a very different approach. They basically accept good enough. They figure out their core criteria for what they need, they find an option that meets those key criteria reasonably well, and then they make a choice, and they move on with their lives. And guess what? They tend to be much happier with their decisions, even if, objectively speaking, a slightly better option might have existed out there somewhere. Their satisfaction comes from making a sufficiently good choice, not necessarily the mythical perfect one. So I genuinely, wholeheartedly encourage everyone listening to try and consciously embrace satisficing more and maximizing less in your decision-making, especially around things like subscriptions where the options are endless. A really key part of this mindset shift is also learning to actively manage or maybe just lower your expectations. We often set these incredibly high, almost unattainable expectations about every little purchase or subscription outcome. We expect constant perfection or nonstop delight. Actively working to lower these overly ambitious expectations can significantly increase your actual satisfaction with what you do choose. And this naturally becomes easier when you deliberately consider fewer options in the first place, which reinforces that satisficing mindset we just talked about. Additionally, cultivating a conscious practice of gratitude can be incredibly powerful here. Make an effort to be grateful for the positive aspects of the choices you have made, the services you do use and enjoy, rather than constantly focusing on disappointments or idealizing the alternatives you didn't pick. This conscious effort can vastly improve your overall satisfaction with what you actually have. And finally, while it's generally good to be aware of opportunity costs, what you give up when you choose one thing over another, I'd also caution against dwelling too much on all the attractive features of the options you rejected, because excessive focus on what you didn't choose can actually poison your satisfaction with what you did choose. It's really about finding that delicate psychological balance for your own mental well-being and financial peace.
That's such a profound shift in perspective, expert. It really moves beyond just the financial mechanics and gets into the psychology of happiness and contentment itself. Fascinating. Okay, so to wrap up our strategy section, what's maybe one final clever little trick? Something that can kind of short-circuit all these biases we've spent time talking about and give us ultimate, immediate control in certain situations.
Right. If we connect this back to the idea of immediate control, there's one beautifully simple yet delightfully counterintuitive trick that I highly recommend people try. And it is this. Cancel a subscription the very moment you sign up for it, especially if it's for a free trial or maybe just for a short-term need you have. Now, I know that sounds completely backward, right? Why sign up just to cancel? But it's incredibly effective for a couple of reasons. Firstly, many subscriptions, even after you've officially hit the cancel button, will continue to provide you with service until the very end of the current paid period. Whether that's the end of your free trial month or the end of the current billing cycle you've already paid for. So by canceling immediately after signing up, you proactively lock in your access for the period you actually wanted, say that free trial month. But crucially, you do it without carrying the mental burden of remembering to cancel later. And you eliminate the risk of forgetting altogether and getting hit with those unwanted charges down the line. You've essentially removed the forgetting curve from the equation entirely right at the very beginning. You've outsmarted the system that relies on you forgetting. For example, you sign up for a free 30-day trial for some new streaming service or app. You immediately go into your account settings and cancel the subscription. You'll still almost certainly enjoy the full 30 days of service, but you absolutely won't face an unexpected bill popping up on day 31. This tactic is super effective because it basically leverages the system against itself. It puts you back in the driver's seat. I saw a Reddit user who perfectly captured this exact sentiment. They shared something like, "Oftentimes I'll subscribe to something and then immediately cancel right afterwards if I'm even 1% away from 100% certain I'll want to renew next month." That's just a brilliant example of self-awareness and proactive self-control in action. It's all about taking that power back from the default settings, from those clever design choices, and making absolutely sure your intentions actually translate into the desired action without relying on future you to remember.
Expert, these strategies, they really aren't just clever little tricks, are they? They're actually informed choices. They're deeply rooted in understanding how our minds work and how businesses, often quite effectively, leverage that psychology. By truly applying these steps we've talked about, from doing those regular audits and setting clear budgets, to using powerful tools like virtual cards, and even shifting your fundamental mindset towards satisfying you, can genuinely empower yourself. You absolutely can navigate this complex subscription economy with much more confidence, transforming those initial, maybe frequent uh-oh moments into empowering aha moments of clarity and ultimately control. Hashtag post-tag outro. Wow, what a deep dive this has really been today. We've taken quite a journey through the fascinating and, let's be honest, sometimes frankly frustrating psychology behind subscription overload. We've really pulled back the curtain on those hidden forces that can keep us hooked, haven't we? From the pain of paying that makes those free trials just so darn tempting, to anchoring bias subtly guiding our price perceptions, the optimism bias that makes us happily skip reading the fine print, the quirks of mental accounting that somehow shrink those small fees in our minds, and of course the sheer undeniable power of habit, and those sticky auto renewals keeping us comfortably or maybe uncomfortably stuck in the status quo. It's so clear that you are definitely not alone if you're feeling the weight of this really widespread modern challenge. But much more importantly, you are now armed with a whole toolkit of practical, actionable strategies. We've talked about the critical importance of becoming your own diligent financial detective through regular subscription audits, and building that strong financial defense with smart, intentional budgeting and cultivating healthier spending habits. We've explored how you can cut the digital leash using those incredibly useful virtual cards for ultimate control and security, and even how you can master your own mindset by consciously satisficing more and maximizing less, by managing those sky-high expectations, and by actively practicing gratitude for what you do have. And of course, let's not forget that brilliant, proactive, unsubscribe, immediately hack for short-circuiting forgetfulness. Just remember, you absolutely have the power to make conscious choices. You can take charge of your digital life and your money. Your peace of mind and your financial well-being, they are incredibly valuable, and they are absolutely worth taking these informed, proactive steps to protect.
Absolutely. Our goal today, and really in every deep dive we do, is not just to lay out the information, but to genuinely inspire and empower you. Taking control of your personal finances using these simple, consistent steps we've discussed, it is absolutely, unequivocally within your reach. Anyone can do this. It's really about transforming yourself from maybe being a passive recipient of charges into becoming an informed, proactive consumer. Someone who makes choices that truly serve your own well-being and your financial clarity. Moving from feeling overwhelmed and maybe a bit helpless to feeling truly empowered. That's not just a nice idea, it's an achievable reality for you. We genuinely encourage you to start small, maybe even today, right after listening. Pick just one subscription you've been feeling unsure about and apply just one of the strategies we talked about. Look at your next bank statement with fresh eyes, with this informed perspective, not with that usual sense of dread. Even the smallest changes, when you apply them consistently, can create really significant positive momentum on your financial journey.
And here's just a final thought for you to maybe mull over as you go about your week. In a world where it feels like virtually every company wants a piece of your wallet, constantly vying for your recurring revenue, how might consciously choosing to unsubscribe, not just from unwanted services, but from the mental and financial overload they represent, how might that free up not just your money, but also your precious mental space, your time, your energy for the things that truly bring you deep value and genuine joy in life? We'd absolutely love to hear about your experiences with this and any strategies that work for you. Share this deep dive with friends who might find it helpful. Leave us a comment wherever you listen, and please actively join our community in this ongoing conversation about smarter, more intentional financial living. Until next time, keep digging deeper into the fascinating world of your finances.